Welcome back to 365 Unlimited. We are back with another episode. Excited to dive into a college football playoff preview in this one. Kind of gauge with the new format, having it be a 12-team playoff. It's interesting. It's a unique format. It's new to us. It's new to the world. It's new to the football world, all in general. But I think a lot of college and football fans in general are extremely excited for the way that this format is set up and kind of see what the kinks look like, what could be fixed for the coming years. But all in all, it's great to see more than just 4 teams in the college football playoff. All right, Gannon's camera looked like it had a little glitch for a second, but we will keep riding.
Looks good.
Was it bad? I wasn't even looking.
No, it's fine. Anyway,
Mars.
No, we're looking at this.
A great way to start off the episode.
We got 2 screens, all right? We got the new setup.
Yeah, no, we get it. It happens. But all right, so let's start off with some breaking news before we get into the college football playoff preview overall. Preview the first round matchups. Today, while we are recording this, breaking news: Bill Belichick is heading to Chapel Hill, otherwise known as Chapel Bill, North Carolina, and he will be the head coach.
All right, Joe Buck.
No, I saw it from DraftKings. DraftKings tweeted it today.
Of course you did.
Chapel Bill Belichick is the new head coach of the North Carolina Tar Heels, a basketball school. So it's going to be interesting, to kind of, I think, see what 72-year-old Bill Belichick can do, and try to rejuvenate a North Carolina program that's kind of non-existent. So I think it's going to be a unique opportunity, I think, for an older coach to come in, see what the new college football playoff and format and overall the recruiting process, the NIL deals. A lot of colleges are now taking the approach, I think, with kind of trying to build a front office similar to what the NFL and professional sports has. So all those things are huge talking points, guys. So what do you guys initial reaction?
Massive.
Like what is? I almost wish we were live when this went. Like I wish we were live recording when this happened.
It kind of reported the day before we were recording this too. Like it leaked, and it was from Don, whatever his name is, one of the NFL guys on Twitter, Cleaver or whatever his name is, Cleoff, and I don't know. It was wild. The first thing I just think about is the college landscape has changed so much, and college coaches that have been in the landscape already they're getting run out, going to get coordinator jobs in the NFL. Maybe that's their choice too. And then it's the younger athletes and the relationships with Bill Belichick. These aren't grown men that he can kind of run like a professional style locker room. It's going to be a lot different. It's going to be interesting to see. I think he could do it if anybody could do it with the great mastermind that he's been in the NFL with the Patriots and success, the pedigree that he's going to bring into the locker room and the meetings, everything like that. The players are going to respect the hell out of him. I think they will. Now, the other thing is, now when somebody gets mad and wants to jump in the portal the first year, it's not like free agents in the NFL where you demand a trade. It doesn't happen, or, it's kind of abnormal to have that happen. It's going to be different with Bill Belichick. I mean, is he going to go on the recruiting trips? Is he going to be flying planes all the time? Is he going to be the Nick Saban style? He got out of it. I think that's half the reason, if not more of it, why Nick Saban's out of the college game now, is having to adapt to this. And it's tough. It will be interesting because the staff around him, the style of setting it up for an NFL program, I think with some of his quotes initially on the Pat show, just speaking in general, if he was going to coach college football, with everything down to the nutrition, the film, the study, all those different things are going to be like an NFL style format. But that still doesn't mean people can't get paid to get NILs to go to Oregon out to Eugene with the Nike pocket. Like just those type of deals that he's going against. It's an uneven playing field compared to the NFL, which is more of an even playing field with the business style behind it and rules and regulations. That's my first thoughts.
Yeah, it was interesting because we were talking about potential NFL landing spots for him like last week or whenever we talked. I wasn't surprised, honestly. A little bit surprised with the North Carolina decision. Not necessarily him going to college. He's definitely going to get more buy-in, I feel like, from the college kids, especially since his resume kind of holds up as one of the best in the league. So I think it's going to be huge. It is interesting how it's going to, like to Ruckman's point about, is he going to be going on these recruiting trips? Is he going to be the one going into the star quarterback's family room? I don't really see that necessarily. I mean, maybe I'm wrong because I feel like we've seen him kind of open up, and I feel like we've seen him since he's retired, like talk more and get on shows and just kind of show a little bit more of his personality than we've seen in the past. So
even then, I think his personality, even on the TV shows, you can still tell. I mean, he isn't like completely loose in TV format. Like it's not him, and you can kind of tell it's forced. And people want to hear Saban, they want to hear Belichick. The great minds in football, because you put them two in a room, and they could probably formulate the best offense and defense we've ever seen. So, like, realistically, that is my number one talking point right there is the recruiting. Now, we like Gannon mentioned, we saw the tweet that came out yesterday before the job was even taken by Bill or North Carolina approved and all of those things went down. He sent, according to the tweet, I don't know 100% what's factual, what's not, but according to the tweet, he sent a 400-page Bible that kind of illustrated, like Gannon talked about, anything from nutrition to film study to minimum salaries for key assistant jobs. All of these things are such a Bill Belichick thing to occur. When we talk about a guy like Bill, so attentive to detail. His attention to detail, I guess, is a great way to describe it in general. He's that type of guy that wants to get everything out of a program, whether it's college football, the NFL. He wants to get absolutely everything he can out of a program and ultimately win championships. So that's what my intrigue comes. I want to see what someone who's 72 years old, I want to see if a guy like that can truly go around and turn around a football program. And Gannon also mentioned, these are younger athletes. These aren't guys who have grown up and gone through the college ranks already and are grown men. Yes, they're grown men in the college sense and are grown and play the sport at a physical and high level, but mentally they're different. And I think that's going to be Bill's biggest test. And I think we noticed that when this past Sunday, the boys with Gronk and Edelman and Brady were all on TV, and they
guys that have been with him for years.
Yeah, they pretty much said right away, like, hey, like, no, I don't see him in college. I just don't see it. And that's what kind of struck me and surprised me the most with him going to college. But I also do think he kind of realized, the door might be closed in the NFL for him.
I think he saw that too, yeah. And the money with the boosters, I think, is a very big point of this with North Carolina. Their backing of their graduates, their alumni, the backing of the basketball team, the history of that. I mean, people say it's one of the biggest moves in UNC history outside of Roy Williams getting hired back in 2003, obviously back with Dean Smith and all the other great stuff that happened a long time ago with North Carolina men's basketball. But just the sheer landscape of this, college football, the intrigue, the buzz with the playoffs, or the more we're going to get into that way. I just think it's really interesting with this because obviously X and O's, Bill Belichick's still one of the greatest ever, and his mind's still sharp. You still hear him get on the Pat Show, the Monday Night Football, the Manning cast. Like, he's very sharp and locked in. But that's when it's a controlled environment, when he can kind of have his fingers and fingerprints, so to speak, on it all. And I just think it's going to be harder with the sheer landscape of college football. It's only getting harder even for these younger coaches and guys that are very successful already. It will be, I'm rooting for him. Like, it'll be awesome to see if Bill Belichick can just get in the college football playoff in the next 2 to 3 years with an automatic bid that way with the ACC. Like, it would be awesome that way to see that. Like, I just don't know if it's going to be able to happen because people can leave and they're going to be able to get recruited and come in right away and initially listen to Bill Belichick and all that. But if stuff's different, the coaching style, the in your face, whatever the different things are that guys get mad about now, they're going to leave. Like, it's not a question if, it's when. Like, and that's the biggest thing with this college football and just college sports as a landscape now. It is a sheer business. There's no guidelines on it. Now, it's going to be good for him to mentor and also raise these players that he can get to come in and commit, because who else would you want to have your kid or son learn from at the end of the day? I think it's a really good tool that way. But to fill out a whole team and be competitive to win a national title is a different story.
Yeah, I think on top of it too, it's like my biggest thing is like this is a much different hire than someone like primetime Deion Sanders getting a job in Colorado, right? Like, him going to Colorado was a massive move, and it was polarizing for the media, just as this is for Belichick to go to North Carolina. I think Belichick news is probably a much more like, wow,
his age,
that really happened.
He was already in the U scene, Deion was.
Yeah, and people know that people want to play, players want to play for Deion. Like, the swag, the culture that he's instilled already
kids,
at Colorado.
Like, it's all, it's
so I'm interested to see, like, what type of players is Bill going to get? Like, what is he going to get, players that that are 3-star grinders, 4-star guys that could be 5 stars, or is he going to be that 5-star heavy recruiter
He's
like
going to hit the
Bama?
portal. That's what he's going to do.
The portal's going to be interesting because they said names have already been being looked at since Monday when the portal opened up. But my last question, I think, for you guys is this a short-term stay or is this a long-term rebuild? Because my guess is within that 400-page Bible here, I do think his son is probably next in line.
They said that was going to be part of the stipulations with it. What do you got, Carter?
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I think he's done with. If you're talking about college, he's done with professional. I think now with the landscape of college, it really doesn't matter where you're at. With the portal and with all of that, with the money that's involved, you can go to a small school, or obviously North Carolina is still not considered like a Boise State or an SMU, but it's not an Alabama or Georgia, and I don't think he has that in the future for him. I think going to a school like North Carolina, where football really hasn't been their main sport, it's always been basketball for North Carolina. Yeah, they've had Drake May and
they've had names
Mitch.
for sure.
Mitch, they've had names. I think there's a couple other receivers that they've had come out. So I don't.
Ryan Switzer, baby.
Yeah, I don't really think he's looking at any of these like top schools. I think going with the North Carolina and building the program up to be like a Georgia or Alabama is probably his play on it.
How quick does that happen though? Like how quick realistically, in your opinion, how quick do you think that happens?
Where is a contender?
Where
they're a semi-contender, actually winning
2 to 3 years. Yeah, I mean they could win football games next year with the portal.
Yeah, that's
Bill knows how to. He's old school. He knows how to build teams. Like he did it with the Patriots, where they didn't have any. It's a defense, it's the linemen, and then you work your way out. And I feel like that's not so much college right now. It's like it's the quarterback. It's put up points, right? And I feel like Colorado struggles with defense, their offensive line. I feel like that's what basics. Bill would focus on first.
Yeah, they're going to be fundamentally sound. Yeah,
100%.
That's what I think. His football team, when you look at it, it's a hard-nosed, 100%. Competitive, gritty.
And then with the portal opportunities and him being the general manager also here, like he's going to have more control than even he did with the Patriots and with Robert Kraft and the NFL with the luxury tax. Like there's going to be so much different things here that he doesn't have to. It's literally going to be free cash, whatever the boosters and the university can raise for him to go spend. It's free money. Like that's literally what he's working with here. I think it's a win-win just for the position. Like Budin said that they're not a blue blood football program already. They're 6-6. Mac Brown's a year older than Belichick. He was there for 2 years already. So I think the sheer number of getting him to an 8 to 9 win team within the next year to two is not out of the question. Now, can they get to that 10 win threshold and start competing for an ACC title and go to the college football playoffs? That'll be 2 to 3 years. And I think that'll be kind of, can he hightail that success and turn this into, a 5-8 year operation where they have a chance? Maybe if he could come out somehow and win a national title in college football before he's like 80 years old and probably still healthy, like that accomplishment would be unreal if he could do that.
If you look at North Carolina and the ACC, like it's not like the Big Ten or the SEC.
Like the Clemson won it this year.
Clemson won, like it's
SMU. Like it's not.
It's usually Clemson, right? Florida State.
Florida State
this year.
They're treading water. I mean, they're still like Mike Norvell's trying to turn that back around after he had it turned around a year ago. So yeah, it's a win-win with the league, the university, with the money and the funding already being a very big institution that way and backing in other sports.
And with this 12-team playoff, like
you never know.
It might be 16. Like by the time he's still coaching, there's been rumors of that in the next 2 to 3 years being expanded.
Yeah, and
I can just see him like taking over, like how I mentioned his son becoming the head coach possibly. First off, I'm also very intrigued to see his support staff, right? Like, who is he going to draw in? There's going to be some former NFL and big names probably that join that
front
staff.
office guys to help with some of this advising with the NIL and the money scene. It's just, what are the guys' ages?
You know damn well that Belichick probably don't want to deal with none of that. Like,
well, that's the thing. You can have all the smart people, but can they relate to the players and the different relationship building? That's going to be the key thing. That's how his staff and his assistants are going to be the biggest hires. And will he let the offense be ran and he doesn't have anything to do with it to be conservative and all that? Let a young guy kind of run the offense.
That might be an issue too, because you got to think with these old school guys. Like, it's not so much about building relationships with your players as much as it is now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like, you got to keep them to stay. Plus the money.
But if you look at all the old time guys, like those old time coaches,
they're all done now.
Right, but because they're old and they've
except
coached
for Pete Carroll when he goes to the Bears.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying the college game, Nick Saban got out relatively quickly. I mean, that was quick exit.
Yeah.
Right, but what I'm saying is, like, there's got to be culture, but it's not going to be, I think, like the Deion Sanders type of coaching.
It's going to be NFL. Like, that's why it's going to be successful, because he's going to be able to run it, say, hey, I've been successful, won championships here. You're going to have to run and learn the system in an environment like that. I mean, I'm just hoping
he can connect with the players, because like I was saying, it's those old-time coaches, it was less about that. You know, you look at those old-time even in basketball, you look at guys like Bobby Knight, right? They won games, they knew how to win, but it wasn't so much like having a relationship with the players. It was like that wasn't the thing. And I feel like that's how Bill was in the NFL. Like, you talk about Brady, like him and Brady did not get along. That's pretty obvious, right?
Near the back end, at least, yeah.
Yeah, can like you do that in college? I think in college you can get away a little bit more with like, listen, shut up, listen to me, right? Versus NFL, it's a little bit tougher to do that. You see that in basketball, right, with NBA coaches versus college coaches. It's a different mindset when you're dealing with college kids than you are with professional athletes. And yeah, they're making NIL money, but nothing compared to a professional athlete. Yeah. So I think that comes into play. Hopefully, I'd like to see him do good.
I mean, and it's going to be a unique situation in general. I mean, everyone, like, you can't lie. Like when Prime took the job at Colorado, people were watching. People were watching Colorado football games no matter what, right? Obviously, last year they came out hot. Then they started losing, but people were still watching. People are going to watch Bill Belichick's North Carolina team. It's good.
There's going to be buzz around it, yeah.
Like, it's great for the university, the buzz, the
but it's not
social
the
media
that you're going to get with Deion.
No, it's not.
No, it's way different. I mean, the sheer numbers of just what Boulder as a community and the university has turned over the last couple of years. But there's going to be the same wave there. I mean, there's going to be people that are going to want to go to college to watch football now because Bill Belichick coaching.
Yeah,
I mean that's a real thing.
It's it's transcending your university, taking it to the next level.
What do they got to lose? They got money to spend with it because obviously they're backing them up with getting paid and setting other things up. They're 6-6. They haven't been very good. Like, why not?
Like, ultimately, like, I think the last thing to touch on here is, like, if this works out and Belichick, one, he's a successful coach and then hands it to his son or it moves away, I do think Belichick's fingerprint is going to be on North Carolina football for a long time. Like, I can just foresee it because, when he retires, he may, like we talked about, he may hand that job to his son. But I do still think, like, Andrew Luck just got hired to be the GM of Stanford football, kind of in that realm, with these new front office styles in college. So that could be a position down the line that Bill takes over himself.
Well, that's what he's able to do now. I mean, he's able to build his own program and build out his whole roster with his own money. It's not the Patriots or the Kraft money and having to meet certain, thresholds for the NFL business cycle. It's
when we take, and in the past, we take for granted the fact that Bill wasn't only the head coach, he was the GM of the Patriots. He built those teams. And granted, yes, they had Tom Brady while they won all these Super Bowls, and is his style out of date, and his player selection is it out of date? And there's the opportunity for that to be visible. We don't know until we watch it, but I do think ultimately knowing that Bill has built Super Bowl level and caliber teams in the past, the intrigue and the buzz is there for North Carolina football now, and it'll be interesting, to see who they end up landing in the portal, what happens over the course of these next few months. And then this summer, before you know it, when we get here and we start talking about camp and talking about the buzz even more, it's going to be interesting come week 1 next year with the North Carolina Tar Heels. But let's dive in, now more news. Heisman finalists were named. We got Dylan Gabriel, Travis Hunter, Ashton Genty, and Cam Ward. When we talk about these names, let's just, get right to it. Let's talk about our finalists. I think we all clearly know who the two finalists probably are in this situation. Ashton Genty and Travis Hunter. Two very unique players, but I think when we talk about uniqueness overall and the ability to truly capture an audience watching the game of football, the name that sticks out the most is Travis Hunter. So let's talk about Travis Hunter first, and we'll get into Ashton Genty. We could talk about the other two players if you guys want to, but I think we are on the same page here when we talk about
100%.
two finalists. So Travis Hunter, ultimately coming from Jackson State to Colorado with Prime and Shedeur, I think has been one of the coolest, honestly, biggest stories of college football in a long, long time. And granted, they haven't won any big games or they haven't made a playoff, and I don't think anyone has expected that over the course of these first 2 years there with Prime. But a guy like Travis Hunter being able to play both sides of the football, it is insane. And not only to play both sides of the football, but to play it at a very incredibly high level. And his athleticism, I think, when you look at his athleticism, there's not a guy in the damn league right now that matches the skill set that he brings to the table. And you could argue that a guy that could play receiver and DB and get drafted in the NFL, I don't think anyone has a clue where he's going to go. He could go anywhere in the top 5. In my opinion, he's a lock to be a top 5 pick. And if some team looks at him and says, hey, we're going to draft you to be DB, but we know you have wide receiver capabilities, you know what? Screw it. We're going to take you at 1 because these quarterbacks are lower this year. We don't know. I'm not saying it'll probably happen at 1 because teams need quarterbacks, hence the Giants, Raiders, and carry on. But Travis Hunter, hauling in over 1,000 yards this year, 14 TDs on 92 receptions, the interceptions on defense that come along with it. Hunter is unique. What do you guys think about Travis Hunter?
I mean, it's just the sheer fact. I think one game he played earlier this year was like 130-some snaps. He took like 3 total snaps off. Like just Ashton Genty was, commented the other day about, every single week the teams that play that game plan against him. And he still showed up and had an unreal rushing year, which was one for the record books, obviously that way. But it's just, you have to game plan for Travis Hunter, not only on the offensive side, but the defensive side. And he's probably better, in my opinion, I think, on the defensive side of the ball. But I just think that's what he's going to play long-term in the NFL. I still think somebody might want to use him as a weapon, but I think he's going to be a defensive back. But just the comparison to Charles Woodson when he won his Heisman back in, 97, I think it was, or something right around there. The offense was not a sheer factor like it was with Travis Hunter. Like Charles Woodson was a playmaker on that Michigan team, and there's a lot of different things that way. But that was the main reason why Charles Woodson won it that year, and now it's even more heightened into the levels that Travis Hunter pushes it. It's just unreal. Like it's a different dynamic. It's a different player. You've seen guys have legitimate historic rushing years before. It's nothing to take away from Ashton Genty, in my opinion, but it's going to happen again. It's a running back at one position doing one thing. This is a guy being dominant playmaker on both sides of the ball. Like it's historic of what it was. It's just a shame that the Kansas game played out the way it did, and they didn't have a chance last week in Arlington to go to the college football playoff.
Yeah, I think the deciding factor is the two-way style with him. Because if he was just a corner, he's not going to win Heisman. If he's just a receiver, he's not going to win Heisman. So looking at him playing both sides and having multiple games with touchdowns and interceptions.
Yeah, just not like he was playing a little bit. Like it's so.
Yeah, just having
full-time position play.
Yeah.
Completely.
Yeah, so having the versatility that he has, I think is, why he's going to. Yeah, it's unheard of for sure, especially to, play as many snaps as he is. Because, remember, Carlson, you played college or high school football. A lot of the times in high school, especially at a small school we went to, you're playing both sides, right? Like if you're a receiver, you're not sitting out on defense. At a small school like us, right?
Yeah.
Like Aquin, like you're playing both sides. So having him do that at such a high level, not just, at a Big 12 school, I think they're in the Big 12 now.
Yeah.
So that's just unheard of. And I think these are two great finalists. If you look at last year's projection of Heisman this year, these guys weren't even in the top 5.
No.
So it's crazy that they took this turn. Yeah, Carson Beck, Milrow was in there. I don't even know who else they
was Ewers in there.
Ewers, yeah, Ewers. I think Shador was in there too.
Yeah.
And you look at like a guy like Genti, the numbers he's doing is crazy. I mean, it's crazy. I think he would win Heisman because I looked it up. I think he was about 200 yards away from breaking Barry Sanders' record.
Yeah.
I think if he would have done that, definitely
you look at it a little differently.
You look at it a little bit different. I mean, he's still, I think, 4th ranked of all time.
Yeah,
but you still got guys like Melvin Gordon and guys like that didn't win the Heisman. Melvin Gordon didn't win a Heisman. He was so close to beating Barry Sanders' record. So I think it's if you look at Vegas, all the money. I mean, if you look at the odds, it's 100. I mean,
it's going to 100.
It's going to 100. Yeah.
I think you bringing up Ashton Genti. Let's dive into that a little bit because I know, like we've seen, unreal numbers, and like Ganna, you kind of hinted at and I had a conversation with a couple buddies about this. Like, we've seen these numbers in a sense before, and that I think that's his biggest knock is the fact that we've seen these type of numbers from a running back. Now we haven't necessarily seen, the amount of the touchdowns, the breakaway runs, the carries. His carries. Looking at, I had a stat. 344 attempts. Like, whoever he gets drafted to in the NFL is going to have to be wise about workload. We talk about guys like Todd Gurley, Melvin Gordon in the league. Carries and attempts, they matter. And the wear and tear on Genti this year, I mean, he's 3 rushing yards shy of 2,500 on the year with 29 rushing touchdowns. Like, the dude is unreal stats-wise. And I think when I was kind of thinking about back to this conversation of who could really win this award between Genti and Hunter, my initial thought was like, playing two ways, it's not a stat. And we talk about that as far as Hunter being this polarizing player. But I also want to give credit to Colorado as a university. Like, Colorado as a university has promoted Hunter and even Shador before the finalists were named. They've promoted those two players. And yes, it's the prime effect, but Hunter's name, obviously since Jackson State, him being a 5-star recruit, him being the best in his class, but his name has exponentially, I don't even know if I said that word right.
Exponentially.
Yeah. There we go. Appreciate it.
It's a school teacher right there.
PE teacher right there. But I think the thing is like they've Colorado, what they've done is they've taken Travis Hunter from a 5-star recruit and Coach Sanders, son figure in a way under Shador and Shiloh, and they've taken him from that to this mega superstar, and they've promoted his name and his work as an athlete, and it's almost like they've taken it and turned it into a work of art. And I know that sounds like I'm just blowing smoke, but in reality, it's that Deion effect, and they've brought this to Colorado, and they've brought this to the college football landscape as a whole, and we just haven't seen this. And normally, like Carter mentioned last year, the finalists for the Heisman, it's the same almost as the NFL MVP award. The Heisman is typically a quarterback award, and it sucks. It sucks, but this year we're down to 2 guys that ain't quarterbacks, and that's exciting. Yeah. That's exciting to talk about regardless, because we can finally debate it. Because I think in general, you kind of it's a quarterback, you look at who had the best stats, and you kind of decide.
Yeah, sign, seal, delivery.
And it's over.
But, the other thing, too, I think that plays in a part, like, I think Genti probably is getting not as favored to win, I think, because of the Boise State, where he's
real,
at.
Though. Yeah, it's different.
Because
those 341 attempts are different in a power
strength of schedule,
Power
teams you're playing. Yes.
He passed Derrick Henry Derrick Henry won a Heisman as a running back
against SEC defenses.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So
and look what he did in the NFL.
Part, but then you can say, okay, Boise State played Oregon, and he still had like over 200 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns.
It's the question mark, and it's not a period. That's
which you'll never know.
Yeah,
right.
And we'll get a taste of it.
And I think that combo, like what Buden says of not being the greatest, or like, if he was second to Barry, it was like 2 yards away or 5 yards away, or broke that record. Like, that was signed, sealed, delivered. I don't care what Travis Hunter's doing at that point. That's a Heisman in his pocket there.
Mm-hmm.
It's nitpick. I mean, it's not knocking him. It's more so what Travis Hunter has done with the Heisman of the impact award there. You take him out of the mix. Is Shedeur Sanders looking at maybe being the potential number 1 overall pick? I don't think so. Like, is he talented? Yes. Was he still going to probably be in the NFL? He's going to have a chance because he's Deion's kid at the same time too. But to have Travis Hunter there on two sides of the ball, and yes, they're not in the playoffs, but they're 9-3 playing in a New Year's Six bowl or whatever it is. Like it's a heck
You're
of a
ultimately
season.
drafting
In
2
years.
players when you draft Travis Hunter.
Yeah,
like,
it's an insurance policy that's never been seen before. Like it's just
because you like Carlson mentioned,
he's more natural on the defensive side. His natural defensive skills are unreal. It's just.
So I had this conversation the other day about I mentioned Melvin Gordon, right, as one of those names. I'm looking back at his stats in 2014 as a junior. So he had more rushing yards than Genty. 2,500,
was saying, yeah.
2,587, and he tied the touchdowns with Genty, 29-29. So that was in 2014. Now I was curious.
Mariota won.
Marcus Mariota won the Heisman that year. And it's interesting because we talk about it being a quarterback award and a quarterback won it that year.
He went crazy that year, though.
Yeah, and that Oregon team in general was very fun to watch.
Mm-hmm.
But it's interesting when you look back at those numbers and say, I think there's – I want to get to one other thing with this, but it's interesting to look at those numbers because of how polarizing Travis Hunter is in general, like we've touched on, and then compare it to a guy who's put up mega stats, but it is comparable to another guy who's played college football and gets drafted 15th overall. So where do you guys – I think we're all on the same page here that Travis Hunter's winning the award, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I personally wish Genty would win it. That's kind of my belief is that I think he deserves it, and I think he's put up stats for it. And with there being a year that a quarterback probably doesn't deserve it, I think this is the year you give it to a running back. But obviously with what Hunter's done and been able to accomplish on both sides of the ball, it's hard not to sway that way. And his media presence and his figure in general.
How often at the same time, before you start, how often does a receiver or a defensive guy, I think the last defensive guy to even be close was Monty Teo.
Yeah.
With Notre Dame, with that whole girlfriend thing.
I think it's even more. No, all right.
Well, he was the
you're
runner-up.
No, but like that. But I think that's what Boone's is saying. It's even more rare than what you're saying about not being a quarterback here and wanting to see Genty would be the running back. Like there's been more running backs than a wide receiver or cornerback, like let alone that. So it's even more special and rare. It does suck that they're both the same year because if Genty was another year recently with some of the quarterbacks that had won, would he have won it over Jaden Daniels a year ago? Yeah, probably. Like it's
good
just
shot. Good shot.
Like
because if you look when Monty Teo was run up, I believe I don't know, but I think it was Johnny Manziel who won Heisman that year.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah, it was.
That's half what was the buzz with Johnny Football. I mean, that dude took over the
polarizing
country.
Figure. Yeah.
So it's all about
of it.
Who's runner up with you, and like I 100% if Travis Hunter was not in the running up, it would 100% be Genty.
Yeah. What I was getting at, the last thing before we move on to some playoff talk and these first round matchups, is Melvin Gordon that year gets drafted after getting second in the Heisman. He gets drafted 15th overall. Do you guys see a similar thing happening with the way football's changed so much since that year that he gets drafted 15th overall? Obviously, as of late, we've seen some running backs get taken early in Bijan and Jahmyr Gibbs, but other than that, it's typically, kind of a second round, back end, first, maybe type thing with running backs. Is Genty going to be a top 15 pick, you guys think? I personally think he almost has to be. I think it's hard to pass up.
There's good running backs in this top tier this year.
There's good backs, 100%. Second round backs, third round backs that you could grab. But
I think the running back thing's coming back a little bit.
Yeah, no, that's why I could see this happening.
Because you look at some of the great. I mean, obviously there's some one-offs, but with Derrick Henry with Baltimore, you look at Saquon and how good that team looks now that they have a steady guy like Saquon there. I don't know. I think he should. I think it's sad if he's not top 15.
Yeah,
because that just shows. Where
what
the
NFL
value
thinks
is
of
in
backs.
the NFL, right?
Yeah.
And now the argument's always going to be there. Like, we had that argument about Dak and, Jordan Love. Like, it's the market and all that crap. But I think that he can still do a lot for that football team anywhere he goes.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. I mean, they don't pay running backs. We all know that. But I still think that's a valuable position that's being overlooked because we have like this West Coast offense where it's throw the ball. And I think getting a guy like that is huge. Now, is size going to be an issue potentially? Because he's not huge. I mean, he's not 6'4", 250 like Derrick Henry.
Mm-hmm.
Where you can just wear him out, Derrick Henry. I mean, you can still now Derrick Henry's getting a lot of carries. I mean, not like he did with Tennessee. But because you made a point earlier, Carlson, about the workload potentially for him.
344 carries this year.
That's a lot. So we'll see. I think he should be. There's definitely
I think he's got a chance
teams
to be
out
top
there.
10.
I'm pretty sure, I think it was Genty, but I think earlier in the year someone posted his stats from high school, and they showed the numbers and the attempts, and I'm pretty sure some of the attempts were absolutely outrageous. So this guy has been getting fed the football for years.
Yeah, it's his.
And
NFL's a different game, though.
It is. Yeah,
and I think a lot of teams are trying to steal the idea of what Detroit has, and I think
it's just the running. I mean, you got to be able to control the game when your offense is not be able to throw it through the air. Like, it's a must because with the defense keeping people off the field that way. I mean, I think there's some stuff. I think he'd be a top 10 pick. I don't think that'd be crazy.
For sure.
I hate to admit it, but you look at like Green Bay and how well that they haven't really been able to throw the ball.
And Josh Jacobs isn't a burner, but he knows how to run the football. Like, they kind of have similar running styles a little bit, in my opinion, with Genty and Jacobs. Like, they're not from goal line to goal line just going to stretch you instantly and just vertically take you down to the field and just, take a 90-yard touchdown to the house on you. But they're going to wear you down over 4 quarters and just beat you down methodically over the time. So it'll be interesting to see with this because, like saying earlier, the running back class in the first 5 to 6, there's good backs in the first 2 to 3 rounds overall. It'll be interesting to see, like with the running presence that has kind of elevated the NFL this year. It's been a shift in you got to be able to have some RPO looks because then it builds off and sets up your passing game. Like, it's vital.
I think the last thing I want to say here, I know I've said that multiple times, but as far as running backs go, receivers, all positions in general, I think everyone has this statement that they talk about running backs, that running backs don't matter. It's your offensive line. If you have a semi-talented running back, you're going to be able to average 4 to 5 yards an attempt and be able to be successful running the football on first, second down, third and short. All of those things can be true, but I also do think there's a difference between running backs and difference makers. I think difference-making running backs, like a guy like Saquon Barkley, who's now behind, a key offensive line, yes, those two things go hand in hand.
Yeah.
You get in the right fit, you go from a running back to a difference maker, and that's what Genty is right now.
That's why it's tough with the top 10 pick. Is there an O-line? Is there a setup for an offensive style?
It's got to be the right fit.
If it's a plug-and-play thing with a good O-line and a good coordinator, a good quarterback, then it's a game changer, like you said, right away.
Yeah, and I think that's just like my statement is there's running backs and there's difference makers, and those difference makers win you football games, and those running backs get you yards and set you up to throw the football. That's kind of where I'm at as far as the running backs not mattering. I think they do in a sense, I think is what I'm saying. But
the right fit.
Anyway, let's get into the first round projections. We'll start at the top of the bracket and move through these pretty quickly besides the Notre Dame one, with Carter being a big fan, excited. Anyway, starting at the top, Clemson and Texas. Number 12, Clemson. At number 5, Texas. Just to get my thoughts right away, I think this game has the potential that it could be a shootout. It could be something where points are put up on the board quite a bit. And I think it'll be interesting to see if Texas can hold the run game, because Texas only gives up about 3.1 yards per carry. Now, if they're a team that's able to stop the run against Clemson, I do think Texas probably doesn't struggle or lose this game. I think this should be a game. Texas got a pretty good draw in the playoffs, and I do think they have the opportunity to win this football game. I just don't think Clemson's going to be able to make enough plays in their secondary, and I think a guy like Quinn Ewers has the opportunity to take advantage of that. And I know he's struggled as of late, and he's kind of been an up-and-down player this season, battling injuries, throwing interceptions, inconsistent play with accuracy. but I do think Texas has what it takes to knock off Clemson right away.
Yeah, I think it's going to come down. I don't think it's going to be so much of a shootout just because of the inconsistent quarterback play of Quinn Ewers and Cade Klubnik all year. Garrett Riley, the OC there at Clemson, Lincoln Riley's brother. Like, they've had good stuff. They have good playmakers. They get 4 or 5-star guys. Dabble's got a good culture, a good program at Clemson. Like, so I don't want to discard them like they don't have a chance in this game because it's also the same thing with the quarterback inefficiencies for Texas with Quinn Ewers. Like Bryce mentioned on turning the football over. Inconsistencies is just looking like they can get down and get up down the field with some of these other programs that can score the ball at a high rate that we're going to talk about. And Cade Klubnik, he's been a Clemson guy 3 years, came in the ACC title game a couple years ago after DJ got benched, whatever that mishap happened there. But it'll be interesting to see. It should be a good game, but their secondary is not as good. Clemson's in the back half of that. They played SMU well in the first half. They're two different teams. I don't know if anybody watched the ACC title game. Clemson looked like they were dominant. They're going to put up 49 and score 7 touchdowns in the first half. Now, obviously, you're not going to do that all the time, but they let them back in and almost let them win the game. And SMU's a talented football team, but they're not a national title contender. Let's be honest, in my opinion, at the end of the day with this. There's no slight towards them. I just think Texas is still bigger and better athleticism-wise, and their playmakers that Isaiah Bond, I think, is going to have a big day. Quinn Ewers can get hot throughout the air, which he's got. I'm just going to ride with Texas and company playing some better football than Clemson, who kind of got in with the automatic win. That was kind of a limp to the finish.
Yeah, I think Texas is going to blow them out, honestly. Not because I think Texas is a little bit overrated, to be honest.
Similar to Georgia.
I think
similar to Georgia.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll talk about that. But I think Texas is going to really control both sides of the ball, and I think that's what Clemson is going to struggle with. It's going to be interesting though, because I know Cade Klubnik, like you said, Klubnik, I think is his name. You said Ruckman.
Yeah.
He's born. I think he grew up in Austin, so it is.
They played Quinn Ewers in high school state title game. Yep.
And they showed that like in the room when they were. When they got in that room when they were doing the selection, and they showed him, and they were saying like that he's born and raised from Texas. I think
Westlake,
all of his family went to Texas A&M, so it's going to be interesting to see that. I just think Texas, above and beyond, is just a better football team. So, I mean, you look at the line, that's crazy. It's Texas is -11, right? That's kind of crazy. We're not used to seeing that. We're used to seeing that in regular season. We're used to seeing
playoff
huge
matchup.
Yeah, but a playoff matchup, and obviously we haven't seen a 12 team. We've only been used to the 4 team, or back in the day it was just the FBC. Or whatever, I think that's what it was called. It was just 2 teams in the national championship.
FCS.
FCS. So, yeah, BCS, I think Texas, whatever the hell it is, Texas is going to win.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the next one. This one, I think, has the opportunity to potentially be one of the most exciting first-round matchups in an 8 and 9 seed with number 9 Tennessee at number 8 Ohio State. I think I'm going to roll with Ohio State in this one. I think Ryan Day has a lot to prove. I think after that Michigan game, taking a loss to the Wolverines, it's interesting because fans in Columbus, they want Ryan Day out of there, and
that way,
it has been, and they just can't seem to win the games that matter. And yes, they've struggled against Michigan, but they can't seem to win the games that matter, and that's the most frustrating thing, I think, for a team like Ohio State. Ryan Day. But I don't know what's going to happen, guys. I do think Ohio State pulls away in this one. What do you guys think?
It's going to be a good game. I think Nico Lamaleve, I butchered the name, but I want to try it for him. Will Howard and company with Ohio State. I think Bryce made a good point with that bitter taste from the Michigan loss. I think this is going to be something that these guys are going to lose back-to-back. It's going to be a clear cut there with Ryan Day gone, all this different type of stuff. They have to make a national title run. I don't think that's a reason why the guys are going to necessarily play well, but I think the motivation of losing that rival game, they were in it the whole time from start to finish, but the tension build, the anxiety. It's tough when you're the favorite and not the dog, that Michigan had nothing to lose in coming into that game. But they still have a chance. They still have an opportunity here. Yes, it's kind of a gauntlet they kind of got to run through with Oregon looming in the second round, but they would go back to Oregon again. Or they'd go to Rose Bowl, excuse me. But it'd be playing Oregon again after early in the year with Will Howard. If he knew the time and a little bit different clock management there at the end, they had a chance to win that football game. So it's very interesting because Ohio State has shown to be a national title contender throughout the year. The Michigan was a blip in their thing. Now they have some time to regroup and get back together. Tennessee's a really good football team also. Let's not be mistaken with that. They lost at Arkansas and at Georgia, two tough teams. I mean, obviously Arkansas is a tough place to play. But Nico being a first-year guy starting, it's going to be interesting to see how Josh Heupel, which a high-powered offense they are. Tennessee can easily win this football game. Let's not be mistaken with that. But I'm going with the Buckeyes in this one.
Before Carter goes, I just want to continue with what I was saying. I got interrupted by these two clowns laughing and kind of struggled to get my thoughts out a little bit here. Anyway, did you touch on Dylan Sampson?
I did not.
Okay, so, I mean, Tennessee, this is the intrigue, I think, when we talk about Tennessee and Ohio State both have quality defenses, right? I think Tennessee overall has a very good power rushing attack in Dylan Sampson, and I
Ohio
do think
State's front seven is pretty good.
So that's a unique matchup right there in this one, especially already being two messed up 8 and 9 seeds in general. Ohio State trying to bounce back from a tough loss. Tennessee and Ohio State both having solid defenses. And Ohio State, who led the FBS in scoring defense, allowed 10.7 points per game. Can they bounce back from that
they
tough
weren't
loss?
the reason why Michigan beat them. I mean, that's not the case. It's their field goal kicker in their offense.
It's going to be interesting to see how an SEC school fares in a Big Ten country in December. What is it going to be like? You know,
it's going to be some fun first-round games, dude.
It's going to be a battle. I'm rolling with Ohio State. You say you're taking who?
Yeah, I got
Ohio State. Ohio State? I'm going to write these down so we can go back to this.
Yep.
Carter, sorry.
Buddha's feeling like a volunteer victory.
I'm going with the Volunteers, baby.
I knew that was coming.
The reason being, I think Ohio State is defeated. I think losing such a big game, like that was the last game of the year.
It doesn't matter if they win though. Like that's the thing now.
But that doesn't matter with Ohio State and Michigan. It doesn't matter where you're at. No. I mean, look, Michigan was terrible this year.
Yeah, they just won it.
And they just won it, and it doesn't matter in that big of a rivalry. I think that plays a huge part. Plus, you put on all the off-the-field stuff with the planting the flag and, you know, all of that drama that went into it. I think there's a ton of pressure on Ohio State. Not a huge fan of Will Howard. And if you look at it, I talked with a few friends that are Ohio State fans, and all of them – not just put the blame on Ryan Day, but a lot of it was put on Chip Kelly, who I believe is the offensive coordinator there. They were saying there was a lot of stuff that he was doing that they didn't like. I don't know if that's true or not. Of course, it's a fan. You know, fans say a lot of wild stuff.
Especially when they're pissed off.
But I think with Tennessee, granted, the first early games were by nobody, but they were putting up like 60 points a game those first like 3-4 weeks.
They play well with Oregon. That's why I'd take it in this one. I mean, they should have won that game. They outplayed Oregon, in my opinion, until the malfunction at the end.
And you look at all these teams in here. Every team besides Oregon has lost, maybe beside Texas. I mean, I'm sure there's a few in there, but have lost to like a school like, come on, like Notre Dame.
Arkansas, yeah. Or Northern Illinois is its own category.
That's pretty bad. But you look at all those, you know, there's a team in there that lost. Yeah. This is different college football, I feel like, than we've seen in the past. So it's anyone's
If this game was in Neyland and Knoxville, we'd be having a lot different discussion also, I feel like.
Yeah. I'm riding with Tennessee.
All right, switch it up. Keep the picks a little uneven. I know Boots is going to be that.
Moving into the next matchup.
All right, let's get this going.
Yeah, this one's it's number 11 SMU at number 6 Penn State, and then we'll dive into Carter's fun matchup, exciting matchup. But I'm going to take SMU in this one. And Penn State, yes, is Penn State. We all know Penn State past years, and obviously I think in general, Penn State's typically always known. They have these high-flying defenders. They got guys on defense that are notable names. They make a name for themselves at Penn State. They're gritty players. They're sideline-to-sideline tacklers. They're aggressive, and all of those things come to fruition when you get to Penn State. And I think Pennsylvania's got a lot of damn good, talented football players, and one of those guys is Abdul Carter. Abdul Carter is going to be a very, very high draft pick in the NFL. I think he has similar traits and attributes similar to what Parsons had when he was at Penn State, the ability to sideline tackle, get after players, the speed, the versatility. All of those things could be a potential nightmare, I think, for SMU. However, SMU being a team that averages 38.5 points per game, they have a high-flying type of offense, and I think that's what intrigues me about this matchup and taking SMU and the Mustangs is the potential for the unknown, I think, in this matchup is the intrigue. Is you don't know, can SMU be able to slow down the rushing attack? You know, Penn State having two rushers that are key players that SMU's going to have to limit. And SMU's done a good job of only allowing 2.7 yards per carry this season. Yep. Penn State has Nick Singleton and Katron Allen, who are the main guys in that attack as far as rushing the football. So I think if SMU is able to limit that ground game and on offense be able to take away guys like Abdul Carter, then SMU has a chance. Yeah. Can I see this on the flip side where Penn State wins this football game? 100%. However, I want to throw in an upset right here. I think this is one that has the potential to be a fun, exciting game, and I think SMU is going to get it done in round one.
I think it's not going to be close. I think it's going to be a two-score game. I think Penn State's going to come out and throw the ball really well against them. Cape Klubnik, when they were on against SMU in the first half, they had no answers in the secondary. Obviously, Cape Klubnik's a really good guy, really good quarterback. Drew Aller's having a really good year. Tyler Warren's a really good weapon for them. They have a lot of good options. They lost 2 games this year. It's to Ohio State by, 7 points, 20-13, and they lost to Oregon by a touchdown. So, they've been in every single game. They score a lot of points. They have the running attack on the ground that way, but Drew Aller can throw the ball throughout the year, and I don't think SMU's been able to see this year. I think the front on both sides of the defense and offense, if they're going to get worn down, they're not as big as a Big Ten team. James Franklin needs to come out and prove something here with this Penn State and his program. Obviously, it's not a top 5 win because they're 0-whatever against AP top whatevers, but I think they can shut some noise. They've had a really good year. They kept that game close against Oregon. A lot of people turned that off, and that game was actually really entertaining towards the end there. He could throw the football. He can get the ball down the field in a hurry. They can score within minutes of their drive. So I'm going to go with Penn State in a good little statement here. And I'm a Big Ten guy, so I want to see the Big Ten kind of thrive too.
Yeah, I want to take SMU because I like the underdog. I think,
Kevin Jen is a baller, underdog guy, not very big recruit out of high school in Texas, but I just
having a team like SMU make it is awesome.
The playoff committee did the right thing.
Until they get blown out and then all the Alabama BS comes out. That's
screw Alabama.
Yeah.
But they're hoping that doesn't happen. I'm just saying that has a real chance of happening.
I just think, Penn State with how well they've played against Ohio State and Oregon this year, typically from the past, every time Penn State gets into those big games, they never can get it done. Mm-hmm. Now if this was Penn State versus, Ohio State or Texas.
Blue blood, yeah. This is a good feet wet for them to get their feet wet.
Yeah, I think this is a great spot for them because they're not going up against a Georgia
and playing Boise State as a neutral site for the Fiesta Bowl in the quarters.
Or it's my ND. So they're getting their feet wet, and I think having the competition, being in those big games, I think it means something. So I think Penn State. I'm going to be taking Penn State in that game.
He's going to be jumping.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, for sure.
All right, Carter.
Nightcap.
Fourth
Let's go.
And final matchup. Fun one. The only Friday matchup. Indiana. If my notes would load. Indiana, number 10, Indiana at Notre Dame, number 7. I think instantly I'm going to let Carter kind of take the brink of the brunt of this one, but just my 2 cents. I think Notre Dame gets this done against Indiana. I think home field advantage is a big thing for Notre Dame in this one. I think them having, being the higher seed, playing an Indiana team that I don't think is necessarily all that great. And I think Notre Dame has been arguably one of the best teams in the FBS in the back end of the season. And I think what kind of contributed to their loss is they struggle in games when Riley Leonard is not a factor in the run game. He has to be some sort of factor in the run game. And if he's able to be, the Irish have a chance to make some noise in this new format in the playoffs this year. I think they get it done against Indiana relatively easily. I think this is another one where, honestly, I think it's really easy to take all the higher seeds in these first-round matchups and not feel too odd about it, too different about it.
Yeah.
Me taking the SMU upset, but Notre Dame, Ohio State, and Texas. I'm rolling with the 3 heavy seeds right there in the first round matchup. I think Notre Dame gets this one done easily.
Yeah, I'll get it real. Go, Budens. Go ahead.
I think the one thing that I've seen that Notre Dame struggles with sometimes is the defense. I've seen them struggle. Like against USC, we let USC put up like over 35 points. So the defense sometimes scares me a little bit. Also, our stud running back Love got hurt against USC, and I believe left the game early. And he's a monster.
Jeremiah Love's a dog.
He's a monster, and having him back there really sets up the Riley Leonard to be able to run and throw the ball. So I think if he's there, it's no question. The other thing it's going to be cool because it's 2 Indiana schools going at it. So I think it's not very far from each other. I think it's going to be a huge atmosphere. My hope is just typically Notre Dame loses in big games. It's just usually what it is. Now, previously when we've made the tournament or we've made the championships, the playoffs.
Yeah.
We're playing Georgia. We're playing fucking Alabama. We're playing Clemson.
Heavy hitters.
We're playing heavy hitters. And when I look at these schools, you could make an argument Oregon is the heavy hitter this year, but like there is not that team that stands out. And that's why I think Notre Dame has a chance because when we made the playoffs a couple of years ago is when they had Trevor Lawrence and ETN and they blew us out like 31-3.
Yeah, good
so
luck.
Rarely does Notre Dame get into a huge game where they're against a heavy hitter and they win.
At home.
Yeah, and it's at home
now.
and it's Indiana, which, is not a football school.
No.
Now, they played well this year and, nothing against them.
Cignetti's a dog.
But Notre Dame, if we get clicking, if our defense can make stops and we can get our offense rolling and Riley Leonard has half a brain, then we should win.
Yeah,
I think it's a blowout.
It's going to be interesting because they came out, they were sitting on their hands, Indiana, in that first half against Ohio State, a big road game, a big momentum. Like, they didn't keep that thing close at all. They were turning the ball over, they were fumbling, they were muffing punts. Like, this is a big statement for them. One, if they can keep the game close and kind of build off of that for Curt Cignetti's tenure, which I think is going to be very, very, very well run for them kind of going forward. I think, like Carter said, if Jeremiah Love can go and be the factor for them, I think that's the X factor with Notre Dame, in my opinion, because like Bryce said, they both took the words right out of my mouth. The RPO setting up with Riley Leonard and him just being able to be a factor with his legs is unreal. That's the biggest thing because when he just has to run and he can't get the ball down the field and there's 8-9 guys in the box, then there's a little different story at the end of the day. But I think Marcus Freeman, this is my favorite coaching matchup of the whole opening weekend with the college football playoff of Curt Cignetti and Marcus Freeman, 2 very different style coaches, I say, with their track record, their stories, like a lot of different things, but have been around really good football minds and good developers for young men. But I think it goes back to sheer size and athleticism of the front guys up front. I think Notre Dame's going to be able to wear the guys down. Indiana can't really win the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. They're going to have to throw the ball a lot. What's his name? Curtis Rourke is going to have to throw the ball a little bit here. I don't think they're going to be able to run it like they have in the past. It's going to be a lot of interesting things in that one, going into a very big road hostile environment in ND. So it's going to be roll Irish in this one, in my opinion.
I think the most exciting thing about this new playoff format in general, guys, is the fact that obviously with it being a 4-team format in the past and kind of having a good sense of who's probably going to win.
Yeah, you don't know.
This year, there's so much unknown of one, how's the format going to look? How's it going to go? Is there going to be upsets? Is
and
there
you
going to
look
be
at
fans
Arizona
pissed
State
off?
and Boise State with buys.
Yeah, like, dude,
but you got to, at the same time, like, you look at, and it's a little bit different in college basketball, but if you could be the worst team, and if you win your conference, you're in the dance.
Yeah.
So given these schools, we've had times like Florida State last, UCF,
takes all that
Florida.
out. Yeah, it's like
Central
3-loss
Florida.
Alabama. Boo-hoo. Like, just don't lose 3 games. Like,
it's really a breath of fresh air for college programs in general, knowing that if you have the 2 losses or the 3 losses,
you're not pressured to go 12-0, 11-1.
And I think that
it
takes the wind out of your sails as for a college coach, for college players. Like, immediately, you get 1 loss and then you have teams like Bama who, if they have 2 losses, they still have the potential to get in. But then there's teams with with 2 losses, like a Boise State team, if they were to have, the 2-3 losses,
Yeah,
there's
you look at the
potential.
NFL, there's 14 teams getting in.
Yeah,
Like it's like what
it's
are we doing?
It's unique, and like Gannon said, the potential to it to continue to expand. Like this is just the beginning of true
16
excitement.
sounds like a real possibility.
And you got the other thing I was going to touch
That'd be unreal.
The other thing I was going to touch on with ND that could help us is not being in the conference and having that extra week for us to rest and get Love back. I looked up.
You got a gauntlet. You want to go win this sucker.
Yeah, and I looked up and they said his knee injury was minor and he's expected to be 100%. I mean, they're always going to say that.
Helps, yeah.
But having that week off, now we can debate all day if Notre Dame should be in a conference, which I think they should.
Helps them or hurts them. I agree 100%.
Now, if we have 2 losses, we're out, no question. You know what I mean? Not having that conference, being in that conference hurts.
So, but it also buys you in because a normal year, you're not probably losing Northern Illinois, so you're still playing with 1 game still to work. You know what I'm saying on that side of it. So it also builds you in a little bit that way. It gives you some security.
I'm fired up as a Bears fan. Like having another team that's at least in the running always makes it a little bit easier.
Has a chance.
Yeah, like you're a Green Bay fan and you're an Iowa fan. So at least you got Green Bay. You're never going to have
I know Sundays are going to be, for sure. It's good to have something.
Now when ND loses, which I don't think they will, I think they're going to win the Natty. But if they do, then I'm going to be a little defeated because now who do I got to root for? Chicago? Like, who am I going to root for? Green Bay? Hell no, I'm rooting for Detroit. So
I think we're in it on that one.
Yeah. Anyway,
let the ND fan close us out.
Yeah, a good conclusion to the episode. Ultimately, knocking on 3 things there with Belichick going to NC, Heisman finalists. The Heisman being named here shortly, and then the college football playoff first round.
Most in depth open up college, I think, absolutely we've
ever done. Yeah. And I think we got to do more of that. Dive into it more. I think it helps me because I need to find a team. I need to find someone.
Well, it's good for the poor. Like there's so much stuff that changes even more so now with these guys moving.
Come back to ND, Carlson. You used to be a Fairweather ND fan. You just need to be an ND.
You got to get a team before you do anything.
I might hop on the Bill train. Maybe I'm going to North Carolina.
You going to be a Tar Heel fan or what?
I might be a Tar Heel fan and enjoy the next 2 years of losing, and maybe in the third year.
It looks more like this than the Cowboys going that way.
Don't get me started.
Players crying on the sidelines.
Hey, it was refreshing to talk college ball and not have to get worked up today.
Yeah, not talk about Micah Parsons crying. All right, let's end the pod, boys. Lotus, good luck to you, man. I wish you the best.
And the Irish back in the playoffs. All right, we appreciate you guys tapping into this one. Enjoy the college football playoff opening round. We'll probably drop this coming weekend, so you'll have the week to get refreshed, get an idea of who is going to win that coming Friday, Saturday. All of those matchups will be coming your way. By then, you will also know the Heisman winner. So here we are. We appreciate you, and we will see you next time.